Hello, good evening. The mother of a young woman from Portsmouth who died just days after being told she had cervical cancer is calling for major reforms to the screening programme. 3 months earlier, Portia McGregor-Sims had been told by a gynaecologist that no further investigations were needed. In an exclusive interview, Fiona Hawke says young women need to be listened to more. Our social affairs correspondent Christine Alsford reports.
Whether she was enjoying a holiday abroad with the man she was going to marry or dancing in the kitchen with one of her sisters, Portia McGregor-Sims is remembered by those who loved her as smart, funny and beautiful.
She was a tiny human being, but she filled the space around her. And as a general rule of thumb, she filled it with joy and laughter and wicked humour and just life. She was so vital.
But Portia from Portsmouth died at the age of 27 from advanced cervical cancer. She'd been suffering worsening symptoms for well over a year, but was only diagnosed with stage 4 disease a matter of days before her death. There wasn't time for her to start chemotherapy or say goodbye.
How let down do you think Portia was?
Massively, hugely let down. At a number of points along the way, I don't think, not even just necessarily in the last bit. She was let down from the get-go.
After months complaining of abdominal pain and irregular bleeding, Portia was referred by her GP to the Queen Alexandra Hospital near her home. But the consultant who saw her thought she had irritable bowel syndrome or endometriosis, and no internal examination was carried out, something her family still can't understand.
An exam at that point would have massively improved the chances of an earlier diagnosis. That failure to do what is a fundamental test in any gynecological situation just seems indefensible, utterly indefensible.
Portia complained and asked for a second opinion. The appointment and further tests that led to brought her cancer diagnosis some 10 weeks later. An inquest ruled last week that the lost time had not actually changed the outcome and returned a verdict of death by natural causes.
Nothing would have saved Portia at that point by the time she was diagnosed. But so far as I can make out, every medical professional, every other medical professional who was involved with her, with the investigation at the hospital, all of them stated that her life could have been extended, you know, anything from a few months, a few weeks to a few years.
Since losing her daughter in April 2020, Fiona Hawke has been researching the cases of other young women with cervical cancer. The numbers who get the disease now has fallen dramatically since the HPV vaccination was introduced. But she thinks reform is still needed to stop other women falling through the net.
We need to open up the cervical screening programme to girls down to 16. We need to get rid of this ridiculous rule that says that if you've had one smear test, you can't have another one until your next one is due. We need to understand that this is a disease that can affect young women of any age.
Following an investigation into what happened to Portia, the QA drew up a series of recommendations for improvements. They say they've ensured they have learned from the experience of Portia and want to reassure patients their safety is of the utmost importance. It's a move the family welcome, but they think there are issues that need addressing in women's medicine more generally.
Young women just don't get listened to, they don't get heard, their pain gets downgraded. We've got to start listening to women when they are telling us what is wrong with them.
Portia's family are now exploring what other legal avenues may be open to them, determined to get justice for their much-missed sister, fiancée and daughter.
What do you miss most about her?
Every single thing. Sound of her voice, sound of her laugh, look on her face, winding everybody up, taking the mick, her humour. She was so funny. Everything.
Fiona Hawke talking to Christine Alsford there. Well, the NHS cervical screening programme says women are invited for an appointment at 25, as cervical cancer is very rare in younger women and any abnormal cell changes often go back to normal. Well, for more information and advice on cervical screening, you can head to our website, itv.com/Meridian, as ever is the address. In other news, emergency services were called to a serious collision outside Cowfold near Haywards Heath earlier. The A272 remains closed after 4 people were injured. Police say 3 vehicles were involved in the crash that took place just before 11:30 this morning. 2 air ambulances, police, paramedics and firefighters were at the scene. New CCTV has been released of a man police want to speak to after a woman was raped in Fareham. This footage was taken from the Aldi supermarket on West Street in the early hours of Saturday, the 19th of March. A 22-year-old woman was attacked on the footbridge close to the town's train station. Anyone who recognises the man is urged to contact Hampshire Police. Gatwick Airport finally reopened its south terminal today after being shut for almost 2 years because of COVID. Well, despite the spiralling cost of living, rising fuel prices and fears about the virus still around, the Transport Minister believes passengers will return. On a visit there, Robert Courts told us he's confident flight prices will be kept affordable. James Dunham reports.
A buoyant beat at Gatwick for the aviation minister visiting the reopened South Terminal. Flights have almost doubled, but our energy bills are likely to go in the same direction, landing this industry with a problem. Can it cope if people can't afford to travel?
It always reacts to market pressures, and I'm absolutely confident it will do so this time, to enable people to get abroad, to have holidays, to reconnect with friends and families and to run their businesses.
But if families are facing an increase in bills of £700, for example, they're not going to be going away, are they, if they can't heat their homes?
Well, this is where we'll look to the industry to do what it always does, which is to make sure that it responds to market pressures to ensure that that family holiday is one that's affordable.
So this is day 2 of the South Terminal being open, and take a look around. It is busy, and quite clearly the bounce back for this airport is on, and passengers that I've been speaking to here are confident that they'll be able to go on holiday again this year despite the rising costs of living.
I do actually have another family holiday lined up, so we'll be going more towards the end of the year, but everything definitely is more costly now, so. But definitely 100% go away again. After all of this, it's been a long wait. So
we just enjoy going on holiday. So yeah,
and we'll be coming back to see family.
We'll be coming back to see family as well.
Yeah.
So whatever we can do, we'll always come back.
All of us are under pressure domestically with some of the inflationary pressures that we're seeing. But all I can reflect are the passenger volumes that we're seeing coming through from the booked loads on the airlines, and it's remarkable.
By July, the airport anticipates more than 150,000 passengers a day, matching 2019. But fuel, one of the biggest airline costs, has soared, the war in Ukraine pushing up prices.
I would say possibly the prices will increase.
Low-cost carrier Wizz Air doesn't want to charge more and shouldn't need to at the moment, having managed to secure several months' worth of fuel at a cheaper rate.
It's very, very connected to the situation in Russia. This is an industry which is prepared for this type of situation and crisis when it comes to fuel prices, of course.
After dealing with a health crisis, this industry will now need to navigate through an economic one. James Dunham, ITV News.
Time now for a look at the weather forecast. Here's Holly.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Good evening. I'm afraid there is a real turn coming in the weather. After the lovely conditions we've had of late, it's becoming much more changeable, and we're going to see a real tumble in our temperatures. So if we look at the bigger picture, at the moment we're in mild air, but we've got a weather front heading our way on Wednesday night and into Thursday. That brings air of Arctic origin ultimately, so hence a very, very different feel, much more like a return to winter really. So showery outbreaks of rain with us as we head through the night tonight. Some of these quite heavy, I think, for parts of the coast in particular as well. They come and go a bit. Otherwise, quite a lot of low cloud, a bit of mist, a bit of murk. At 6 to 10 degrees, I think, to start tomorrow morning. And we start tomorrow morning with some showery bits and pieces of rain, mainly across the southernmost fringes of the region, and they do eventually pull their way through. Some bright spells coming through. We've got a northeasterly breeze by that stage, but the temperature's quite a bit lower than we've seen of late. Now, into Wednesday, I think it'll start dry, but we could start to see some rain heading our way. That's the cold front. It ushers in that much colder air, the chance of something a bit wintry, and the risk of some frost and ice as well.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
And that is it from us for this evening. We are back bright and early tomorrow morning, but until then from the team, sleep well. Bye for now.